Welcome to a cool and cloudy day here at Empty Mountain in western Montana. It is July 15th today, and I just thought I would take some footage and kind of focus on the dynamic nature of both living in the small and living in western Montana, both things. And by dynamic, I mean that you just really never know what will happen with the weather here in Montana, and also dynamic in the sense of like living small means like a lot of your actions and activities impact and affect your indoor environment like pretty quickly. You can notice it. So like small changes, you can feel them in the space when you live in the small. So yesterday, for example, it was 95 degrees. It was super hot, full sun, super summertime out. And today, it's not slated to go over 60 degrees. So that's a pretty big temperature swing in a day, which is not uncommon here. Like throughout the whole of the year in western Montana, it's not uncommon for us to have those big swings and just really variable weather. So today, let's see, right now it's around 12 o'clock. It's 57 degrees outside and 74 inside. And because we now live a life that I check the weather pretty much every day because it's helpful for a number of reasons. I checked the weather knowing that we weren't going to get very high in temperature today, so usually in the morning I would open the windows and let in the cool air to cool down the cabin, and then close them strategically at the proper time to save in the cooler temperatures before it gets hot out. But I knew today that was not going to be a thing that was necessary. So I did not do that, and in fact, I kept the windows closed to keep in the heat, because it's not going to get very warm out today. And anyway, so it's just so dynamic, and like when you live in the small, you really feel that effect right away. So if I had left the windows open this morning, like usual, not knowing it wouldn't heat up, I'd like cool this way down, and then it'd be cold in here, cooler, less comfortable today, and maybe I would have had to start a fire, which is fine to do, right? But I'm just like, it's just an interesting relationship with how small we're living, and just the weather and temperature of Montana in general. So we got a little bit of rain this morning, which is awesome. We're getting into our dry, high fire season here, so any bit of rain is helpful, and also because of course we collect rainwater for purposes of washing hands and dishes and anything that isn't drinking or cooking water, we collect and use rainwater for. So anytime it rains, and we're able to put more water in our barrels, that's a good day. And we have an extra enjoyment right now is that we just got a rain gauge. So now we're keeping track of like kind of exactly how much rain we're getting, which is fun. It's cool to be interested in that, which is new for me. So it was interesting because we actually wanted to join this online community of like rain gauge collector community people. But it was kind of hard to plug into that because we don't have a physical address. So I kind of needed to be able to put a physical address in there to be part of the community, because they want to know where you're collecting water from. And turns out it's harder to plug into the community when your location is like somewhere in the woods of western Montana. So I didn't see a way to put like specific coordinates. Anyway, we're just going to do the rain gauge thing on our own, which is fine. But maybe we'll go out and take a look at it. All right. So when we got this rain gauge, the instructions were like that it has to be situated, I don't know, something like 200 feet from like any structure or tree, you know, like for the best readings. And when we read that, we were like, wow, we don't have that. We don't have anything that is situated 200 feet from anything because we live in the woods, so there's trees everywhere. So this is the best we can do as far as like an open space. So Mike, this is actually a tree that he was planning to kind of cull these out anyway. So this is a tree that's was rooted, it was growing, had branches and everything until just a couple days ago. So this is rooted in the ground here. And he stripped it, took off the branches and stuff. And so this is our gauge. It's got a funnel on top. What is going on over there in the neighbors? Can you guys hear that beeping? It's not quiet in the woods today. There's construction and logging happening. Okay, so this is what we have. And the way my brain sees this is we have 1 3/4 of a millimeter. Okay, so this is a tenth of an inch? I think. This whole thing is an inch of rain. And when I took a picture of this and texted it to Mike because he's working off site today, he said, he reported back, he's like, oh, we got 1/7 of a hundredth of an inch or something like that. 7/100ths of an inch. Okay, people. Numbers are not my thing. Anything that involves numbers, I like check out and glaze over. I have no idea what 7/100ths of an inch means. Okay, but I trust that he knows what he's talking about and it makes sense to somebody. But when I see this, I'm like, oh, it's 7 ticks up on the left. I don't know, you know. So anyway, it's still exciting. so there's that. But now we're going to keep track of those numbers, just, you know, just for fun. Here's our PV panels, and they are not drawing any juice today because gray clouds. So everything affects our little homestead here, you know, sun, rain, weather, temperature, all the things. So early this morning it rained hard, but not for very long. But we do flush off the roof before we plug it into the barrels. So this is what collected before I plugged it into the barrel. So we just kind of like to wash off debris, pollen, just kind of the excess of stuff before we collect it to go into the barrels, just to kind of keep it a little cleaner. And here's our other one. So this water we will put actually back there in that red trash can off the eave. And pretty much solely we use that water to wash out our loo buckets for our compost toilet system. So none of the water here goes to waste, that's for sure. So yeah, today is cooler and cloudier, and yeah, Shira, Princess of Power, which is our solar, that's what we've named our solar power system here. Yeah, she's not collecting any juice right now. 0 from the panels. So I imagine that will stay true for the rest of today. And in general, you know, if we're not getting any solar through the PV panels to go into our batteries, which we operate on for electricity, then we need to use our generator as a backup for powering up the batteries every other day. Maybe run the Jenny for an hour and a half every other day if we're getting like 0 sun coming in. So we'll be fine for today, but I'm also being conservative. Like, I'm not powering up stuff that doesn't need to be powered on, or charging up devices that can wait till tomorrow when we're supposed to have sun. So just making some other choices to kind of, not have to run the Jenny, as soon, and we probably won't need to if we get sun tomorrow. Not that it's a big deal to run the generator. It's super efficient. It's quiet. It's, it's very easy. But we like to try to do our best to limit that as much as possible, to reduce our impact and footprint in the world. So anyway, it's really interesting to live, again, in the small, here in western Montana, like when it's super hot out, like anytime we open the front door of the cabin, like you can feel the difference. Like, so we try to like limit how long we have the door open, how much we go in and out. I cook outside because any amount of extra heat in here, you feel it and it stays and lingers. And so you can just feel it right away. We don't have a huge space where it like disperses acute fluctuations in temperature, so, sort of everything matters when living in a small space. And honestly, personally, I really like that and prefer it that way. And really, Mike and I have lived in the small our whole adult life. Like, we've never been in a large place. We've had apartments, and then our last house was 550 square feet. So everything's relative, but 550 square feet is still pretty small by US standards. So we're about half that here in this cabin. We did the math a while back, and this is about 220 square feet. So, there's lots of ways to live in the small. No one way to do it, but, one thing that you learn pretty quick when living in the small, that, like everything matters. Like everything you do, everything you keep around, like it has to have purpose, meaning, value of some way, because you just don't have a lot of space. And then living with our small electricity system and setup, we're just really careful about what we leave on and what we're charging up and when, and we're just a lot more connected to our electricity usage, and also our water usage, because we're off-grid and without running water. So anyway, it's dynamic here, and the weather in western Montana especially, and many places, is very dynamic. I think there's a lot of places that are more steady in weather and temperature than here. We can have really big swings. But it keeps us on our toes, gives us a lot of practice of working with impermanence and going with the flow, and, preparing the best you can for the weather that's a-coming. So anyway, thanks for tuning in, and happy summer.